Hello and welcome to PHRC Raising the Standard. We're brought to you today by the Paducah Human Rights Commission and the City of Paducah. I am your host, Gary Reese, and today's topic is homelessness, especially homelessness in the area of Paducah. And we have a very special guest with us today, Heidi Sir Heinrich. She is the Executive Director of the Paducah Cooperative Ministry, and you've been there for quite some time. So if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
All right, thank you for having me here today. I have been the Executive Director of Paducah Cooperative Ministry, or PCM as we call it. Golly, it's about 18 years now, just about 18 years. And I've been in Paducah for about 20 years. And I have to say, it's such an honor and a privilege to work with a group of people who their mission in life is to truly care for your neighbor as you would want to care for yourself. You know, and that really is the spirit of the Paducah Cooperative Ministry. And so I'm surrounded by fabulous people. The mission of PCM has always been to respond to basic human needs of our neighbors in McCracken County. And so people who are struggling, we feel a passion to see what we can do to help.
All right, good, good. Well, 20 years is a lot of service, and we really appreciate your service. I know you do a lot of different things for the community. I want to focus today, though, on the homeless situation, if we could.
Sure.
If you would tell me a little bit about, and I think there is a standard, probably definition for homeless and homelessness. How would you describe or define what that is?
Well, the most basic definition would be an individual who lacks a regular, stable, safe nighttime residence, you know, for lack of resources.
Right.
But what does that mean? You know, that can mean that a person is sleeping in their car overnight. That could mean that a person is sleeping in somebody's shed or on their porch, or they're camping out in the woods, or you know, someplace that's unfit for human habitation, staying in a public place. It also indicates a person who's staying in a shelter, or maybe staying overnight in a motel that's being funded by a church or another organization. So it covers a variety of possibilities, but due to lack of resources, they have no regular fixed nighttime residence.
Right, right, okay. Well, to try to get the extent of the problem, according to statistics, and I'm looking at one here from the National Alliance to End Homelessness, they estimate that probably over 500,000 Americans are homeless. And how would you or how would you describe the problem as far as the extent of the problem here in the Paducah area, as far as maybe the number? Is there a way we can get a handle on the number of people we actually have here in this area that are homeless?
You know, Gary, that's a real thorny issue. Yeah. I've heard that statistic also. I think that any attempt to count individuals that are in a homeless situation is going to be low. The very nature of a transient, unstable person means that they're moving around a lot. And the method of counting is there are attempts, you know, and so what we're really doing is getting a snapshot from various angles to at least get a sense of the scope. Across the nation, there's a day every year, end of January, where each state attempts a point in time count, a single point in time count, to get an idea of how many persons are homeless on that particular day in their state. It's a little bit easier done in an urban area than it is in a rural area such as ours. It's simple to count all the people staying in a shelter, but then you have to look at other institutions like school systems and social service agencies to try and get a sense of others that may be invisible.
Right.
And particularly in a rural area such as ours, homelessness is invisible.
Right.
And many people are surprised that we even have homeless people. And this is a very long answer for your question,
No,
I really want to give the whole scope
yeah.
of it, you know. So in the single point in time in January, we attempt to count all the homeless people that can be identified on that day. And again, in a rural area such as ours, it's largely going to be persons that are in a shelter. And last year, they identified 115 individuals Now, I think that's just the
Is
tip
that-
of the iceberg
those
in
are
McCracken
shelters?
County.
Oh, McCracken County,
In
okay.
McCracken County.
Okay.
Now, the school system, for example, and when we talk to them, they say, in an average 3-year period, Paducah City Schools may see 150 students that experience homelessness at some point in the school year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And we look at McCracken County schools and they say, well, maybe average of 72, 75 individuals in the county schools experience homelessness on an annual basis. So the schools are a source of some of that. Statewide, they counted close to 5,000 on that single point in time. But
Wow.
we know it's very, very difficult to really get an accurate count of the numbers of homeless, particularly in rural areas.
Well, I think when we think about homeless, we don't really, I think a lot of people have a certain stereotype that they think about. And you mentioned the children in the schools, and I don't think we really think about those and how many families there are that perhaps are homeless. Is there a profile? Is there a specific? I know we a lot of times think about individuals, and obviously families are involved. But is there a profile or a standard, if you will, for what a homeless either family or a person might look like, or maybe what they've gone through to get to that situation?
Well, that's a complicated question with probably a complicated answer, but I think there's a stereotypic profile, and we think about what we see in the movies and on the news and what we see in urban areas, which are typically characterized as maybe a middle-aged person that is alone and has a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue and looks unkempt and maybe even unaware of their surroundings, and that's what we think we would identify as somebody who's probably homeless. We could be wrong. May not be homeless at all. What's unique in an area like this is that homeless people look just like everybody else, and they're very hard to identify. And families with children are the most alarming and the fastest growing segment of the homeless population. And we should be disturbed and distressed by that and keeping an eye on that. I think that is a statistic that surprises people.
Right.
Down at PCM on a monthly basis, we may get 65 to 70 calls in a month just about shelter, and not all those people are ready to come into shelter, but they may be people who are in such a precarious position that they anticipate the possibility of being homeless at any moment.
Right. Is there certain times of the year, as far as seasons go, that you have a higher incidence of homelessness?
Well, that's another interesting question. I think a lot of people think in wintertime shelters must really be overflowing because of the weather, and imagining people coming in from staying in outside somewhere. But in an area such as ours, because of the high numbers of families with children, it's actually summertime for us. And the reason for that is in rural areas such as ours, people say, where are these homeless families? Well, they're doubled up. They're staying with this family until their welcome runs out, then they go stay with that family, and some of them have a little bit of income and they might be able to manage a week at a motel, and the next time their check comes, they can buy another week at the motel. So they're staying in these situations, and it's very precarious, and we have to imagine what it's like to be a kid under those circumstances. School buses stopping at the Economy Motel and picking up a family of children, and the kids go to school, and maybe their life is so unstable that they didn't get very much sleep last night. And maybe because they're staying in a motel or they're staying with somebody else, meals are catch as catch can, snack type things.
Right.
And so how is a child like that going to perform in school the next day?
Right.
We like for our children to only worry about, did I get my homework done last night?
Yeah.
We don't like our children to imagine adults' worries, like where are we going to sleep tonight, and is it going to be a safe place, and am I going to be cold, and things like that. We don't want our kids worrying about that, but we've got a great number of children that are exactly in that situation.
Yes. I know my wife works in the Family Resource Center in the local county school system, and she deals with that and talks about the children out there and how sometimes they try to provide backpacks for them with food, so they'll have them at least have food on the weekends and things like that.
Right.
So I'm through her, I am a little bit, cognizant of the problem with the children. The Paducah Human Rights Commission, our mission really mainly, or not mainly, but one of our missions is that we try to make sure that we have an equitable distribution of services, and so that we can all work together in the community as partners. And we try not to leave other people out. But obviously the homeless, because of their situation, a lot of times do not get to have some of the services, or they don't take advantage of some of the services that are available, like medical services and things like that. Can you address that just a little bit and tell me perhaps what some of the things they might miss out on because of their situation?
Well, it's difficult sometimes to get services if you lack a fixed address, for example.
Right.
You may not qualify for food stamps or something like that without a fixed address that you can verify. Other barriers might be lack of identification. These are things that some of the things that PCM addresses with individuals that come in asking for help. Do they have an identification? Do they need a replacement? Can we help with that? Do they need replacement birth certificates? Can we help them with, get them into a sheltered place and they can get an address? It can seem so overwhelming that people just give up trying to access those services. The other thing is transportation. Need to get out to the Social Security office, need to get over here, have to take the bus system. Maybe the person doesn't have the resources for that, or doesn't have the know-how, or is totally intimidated by trying to do that. And so those are some of the things that come to mind. And I want to get back, I didn't fully answer your question about why summertime was, I got sidetracked a little bit. But
it's okay.
When you've got these families doubled up and the kids get home from school in the summertime, that's when the pressures tend to erupt in these doubled up households. You might have 11 people staying in a 2-bedroom trailer or something like that, and they can maintain and hold it together. But then when the kids get out of school, the tensions and the pressures and it just becomes unbearable, and that's when things start falling apart and people coming into shelter. Shelter is usually the last resort, but it is a good springboard for getting started on rebuilding a life.
Right. Do you see, I know if you look at the statistics, criminologists tell us that homeless people are often more apt to be, more apt to be victims of crimes because of maybe situations like that you're talking about there. Do you see that here? I mean, do you see that maybe the homeless are more apt to be victims because they're more vulnerable to predators or other situations where they might be victims?
I think a person who is visibly homeless, and again, this is a little bit more of an urban homeless issue than it would be in this area, but certainly persons who are homeless are easily taken advantage of. I've heard of, numerous times people have come in and said, well, I was staying with so-and-so, and I gave some money towards rent and utilities, but after I gave, half of my disability check or 3/4 of it, they told me I had to leave, and they got taken advantage of a little bit. But in terms of violent crimes, I think it's we don't have a lot of experience with that, thankfully. I think it's a little bit more of an urban situation where homelessness is so much more visible.
Right. Okay, all right. Well, tell us about just some of the services that you provide at PCM.
Okay. Well, in general, looking at basic human needs, hunger is at the top of the list, and we've been around since 1973, and that's how we got our start, was with a food pantry. And last year we helped over 5,000 times. We can easily help 400 to 500 households in a month that need emergency groceries. So when people hear the name PCM, they tend to think of macaroni, cheese, and tuna fish and things like that. We also help with urgent financial needs. If somebody's facing a utility disconnection for insufficient funds, or rent eviction, insufficient funds, then sometimes we can help with that, $100 in a 12-month period, sometimes scratching the surface. But if that keeps them in their home, then we've helped somebody avoid a homeless incident. So that's an important thing. And since 1989, PCM's been really active in the area of homeless services. And that's really when we started to notice the changing face of homelessness in this country reflected in our community. And we began providing shelter and support services with the goal of trying to break the cycle of homelessness.
Right.
There's different kinds of shelters. All are important and necessary. You expect them all to give you a bed and a place to wash your clothes and have a meal. PCM has always wanted to break that cycle of homelessness by looking at what are the circumstances that have caused homelessness, what are the barriers that might get in somebody's way of getting out of homelessness. And the most important thing to think about is that homelessness is a complicated issue, and it doesn't come with a simple solution in most cases. It takes time.
Right. Do you see a lot of, and I know that you deal mostly with women, females, is that
Yes,
correct?
That's correct.
Do you see very many, are you aware of very many homeless veterans?
It's a small number.
Right.
It's a small number that we see, and sometimes we've had 1 or 2 women veterans that come through.
Right.
We do primarily serve in our homeless shelter program women and moms with children, and that's because currently at this time we're the only shelter that provides that service in the entire Purchase region.
Right.
And so it's very much not only a vulnerable population, but a vastly underserved population. And so that is the population we focus on, though anybody that walks in PCM and says, I don't have anywhere to stay, we're going to sit down and talk with them and try and get them a bed. And that might mean contacting River City Mission for a single man, or maybe a married couple, or if we can't find a bed in the community, it's getting on the telephone and finding the next nearest shelter, and helping them with transportation to get there and setting that up for them. So we try and address every homeless situation that comes across our threshold.
Right. Who mostly serves the male homeless population?
That would be the River City Mission.
Okay.
They've been doing for many years a wonderful job of providing for single men who are in a homeless situation.
Right.
And then a number of years ago, they created some cottages for married couples with families.
Right.
And so, what I like to say is that we have in this community a division of services so that we're not overlapping and duplicating services. That PCM used to try and do it all. We had a house for single men and married couples, but when we realized that there was nothing else out there for single women and moms with children, then it made sense to us to dedicate all of our beds to that population and refer folks to other organizations that provided.
Right. Do you all have any contact or association with the community kitchen?
Yes. We talk back and forth and share food back and forth. And last year we did some case management for the warming shelter that they had over there. And PCM was a cooperative effort of area congregations, but in this community there's a wonderful spirit of cooperation in general that extends to the helping agencies, and we all know one another. We all try and keep on top of what one another is doing in terms of services, so that we can make appropriate referrals. And we can't help with that, but we know that this agency might be able to help with that. So there is a lot of back and forth and food sharing. We've got an abundance of sweet potatoes. Let's see if River City Mission needs some. River City Mission comes over and says, we've got an excess of this. Could you use that? That's wonderful. What a great community.
And that is great. I think we're very fortunate in this area to have that. Do you see this problem ever being solved? Do you think it's getting better? I know that's probably a crazy question to ask, but
well, and again, we talk about how hard it is to measure, but I like to think, Gary, that we kind of hit the apex, a year or two ago, and that maybe we're starting to reduce numbers of homelessness. I know that our government has looked really hard at chronic homeless individuals and veterans. So those have been 2 homeless populations they really focused a lot of time and money on. Families, they haven't, not so much yet. So that would be definitely the next homeless population we need to look at. And again, I just can't say enough about our concern over the children. We just have to imagine, because we see so many tiny ones. You asked about profiles, and One of the more vulnerable populations that we see are the very young moms that have a couple of children, and mom may be 21, 22 years old,
Right.
lacking adequate life skills and being pretty much overwhelmed. So we think about what chance that child, that 2-year-old, is going to have living from pillar to post. And when they start kindergarten, are they going to be on the same level as all the other kindergartners, or are they
Right.
already going to be behind?
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. So
Yeah,
you have a program called the Fresh Start Village.
Yes.
And I want to take, before we run out of time, I want to let you share some information about that with us.
all right, and that is a brand new facility that we sort of created on the fly, and that was out of necessity. We had been housing our shelter over at the Housing Authority for many years in a partnership there, but circumstance changed about a year and a half ago and left that population that we just talked about being so vulnerable without anything. And so the PCM Board of Directors and our supporters just felt like that was an unacceptable situation. So we, as quickly as possible, established a construction project and completed 4 brand new housing units just before Thanksgiving in the first phase of the new Fresh Start Village. And it's a home-like environment where people can come in and sit down and kind of regroup a little bit and then begin putting the pieces together to rebuilding their lives. We expect that takes some time, so people may stay with us 3 to 6 months while they put those pieces together. And so those 4 houses opened just before Thanksgiving, and already we have moms and children living there, and ultimately we may add another couple of houses and an administrative building over there. We don't see the problem going away anytime soon, Gary, to get back to your original question.
Right.
It's a thorny, complicated issue because there's a lot of things that go into that in helping somebody get out of a homeless situation.
So chronic, and I meant to ask you this earlier, and that's great. What you were talking about, the Fresh Start Village. I think that's a great movement.
It's something we believe passionately about.
I can tell, and I think it's very, very much needed. I want to get back to the chronic thing. I feel like I'm jumping around, but the chronic, is there a single or maybe 2 or 3 triggers that might cause a person to be chronically homeless? In other words, is there a general source or cause, or the economy, or maybe mental illness or something like that? Is there anything that we can point to that maybe we can help with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In a nutshell, typically it's a person with some sort of disability.
Okay.
It may be, we see folks with cognitive developmental delays and disabilities, borderline IQ, somebody with a serious learning disability, somebody with a chronically untreated mental illness, somebody who has a serious substance abuse addiction issue. Those don't, I think of it as a tangled ball of yarn, and sometimes you'll find people with several of those things tied up together. And it can be very difficult, particularly with chronic mental illness, to get that unraveled and get that person stabilized to a point where they can maintain housing. You can give somebody an apartment, but if they don't have the emotional stability and the life skills to maintain it, then they're just going to repeatedly fail time and time again.
Right.
So addressing chronically homelessness is a really tough one. It's a real tough one.
Right. Well, now you're a nonprofit.
Yes.
And you mentioned you had a board, and you mentioned that you had some, I guess, regular sponsors. If someone were interested in helping, maybe sponsoring or helping to fund or wanted to donate, how would they go about doing that?
PCM is locally funded, and in our early days, founded by area congregations. We're an interfaith ministry, and so our backbone has always been the faith community, and undergirded by that, by individuals, groups, businesses, organizations, foundations, all local, that come together to help support us. PCM's a big ministry, and it takes a lot of community support for us to be able to provide adequately for the human needs that we talk about needing to address and respond to. And so we're so thankful for the faithful folks that monthly, you know, it may be to their mind just a little something, but to us it matters. Every dollar matters. And I talk all the time about how PCM is kind of like a patchwork quilt, you know, or a stained glass window where all those pieces come together, and one piece by itself, you know, doesn't look that significant, but when you put them all together, you have something wonderful, functional, beautiful. And so I always think about PCM as being something like that, and in terms of funding as well, that all those dollars that come from all those different directions, that and the fact it's a ministry, Gary. And so we trust it, and we know we have a partner, you know, and when we seek to always do God's work with our human hands, and we trust that God's got the part that we can't do by ourselves.
Okay, all right. We only have a couple more minutes. I do want to ask you this, though.
Sure.
As far as if someone wants to come and volunteer, I know that you build pantries, or you build shelves, or you put things on shelves. And is there something that the way they could maybe contact you, or if someone wanted to volunteer, what would they need to do to go about doing that?
Give us a call down at PCM, and our phone number is 270-442-6795.
Okay.
We try not to turn anybody down that is interested in helping, but there are certain times of the year where we can really use some help. One of the things we'd like to do is bring in youth groups or school groups and actually have them operate the food pantry for an hour or two, because that really imprints on their minds what it's like to help others and what a food pantry looks like, and it's something that stays with them for a long time. Just recently we've been sorting canned goods with all kinds of groups from the Christmas lights in the park.
Okay. Is there anything in the next few seconds that you would like to add to wrap up in regards to your organization?
I guess, Gary, what I would say, it's hard to think of, but there's a lot that we could say. We say that our mission is doing God's work with human hands by bringing together individuals and resources. I consider that doing God's work with human hands is not just PCM's calling, it's everybody's calling. You know, we all can do a little something with a passion for some special purpose that helps make the world a better place for somebody else. And I think that's the thing to strive for.
Right. Well, we really, really appreciate you being with us today and
Thank
sharing
you.
your information and especially about this problem. And I want to thank you for joining us today here at PHRC, Raising the Standard, and we'll see you next time.